All right. Well, it's Sunday, so I think we know what that means. Here for another video. So let's get going. All right. Welcome back to the channel, and thank you so much for joining me. So this Sunday, we are going to talk about iPads. Specifically, what size iPad do you need? Well, I have with me three different sizes of iPads. I have the 11-inch starting in the middle. I have the 11-inch iPad Air. I have the iPad Mini, uh, whatever the last one was. I mean, was it the A17? Something like that. Yeah, so I have it's plugged in, so you can tell that I really prepare. So yeah, so I have the iPad Mini, and then of course I have my iPad Pro here in the background. So why do I have three iPads? Well, I have three iPads because I have a shopping problem, but I also like to have the availability of a larger tablet and a smaller tablet. So let me explain what I mean by that. So it depends on what you're using your iPad for, because like most people, I believe, use it for just media consumption. If that's the case, then it really depends on portability versus screen size. And what I mean by that is if you are using it for media consumption around the house, then my suggestion would be go big, right? You want the 13-inch iPad or 12.9, I think is the older one. Because that's something that you're gonna be able to see fairly easy, like it's gonna be a nice big screen. I sometimes use the 13-inch as um, a second screen for my iMac. Um, so that is an iPad Pro. So I'm going to also talk about that in a minute. But that's my feeling about the media consumption part. Now, if you're taking it out and about, then you may want to consider going with something like the 11-inch or the iPad Mini. I would think again, if you're doing strictly media consumption and you're not really using it for anything else, you're not, trying to actually be productive and get work done on it, then I would still say err on the side of the 11-inch then versus the iPad Mini because again, if you're using media consumption, the thought is that you want a bigger screen. Or that's just me. I mean, maybe people are different. I don't know. I'm not your dad, so you do what you want. But that's my feeling on it. Now, the iPad Mini, where does the iPad Mini fit in this? Well, the iPad Mini is the one that I actually carry with me almost all the time. Just because of its size, it's small enough and convenient enough to just shove in a everyday carry bag, and I can use it to take notes. I can use it to check on various calendar things and stuff like that. It's bigger than my iPhone. Um, and it gives me more screen real estate to do certain things on without having to carry around the iPad Pro or the 11-inch iPad. So that's kind of my quick rundown of the three. Um, if you are looking for something, especially now with iOS 26 um, coming available, if you're looking for something that's going to take the place of like your like a Mac, a MacBook or something like that, then I would say go with the 13-inch and then just add a keyboard case. Like I have the Apple keyboard case here with that. I slap the iPad on it. Boom, I can work on it kind of almost like a laptop. There are tons of videos about that actually if you are curious what I mean by making an iPad a laptop. But anyway, so for that, I would say go to the bigger one. So then why did I get the 11-inch one? Aside from the before mentioned shopping problem. Um, well, I got this because this is the iPad Air. They had talked about it being so light. And I kind of wanted to check it out. And um, I gotta say, like I go back and forth. Like with all of these, I go through cycles of, you know, I want to use this one, I want to use that one. More often than not, I always have the mini with me, but sometimes like I'll grab this and I'll take this. I have a case with a keyboard for this one. And also actually a case for the keyboard with a mini one. But I will say the mini keyboard case, which is just a third party case that I got with kind of a detachable keyboard, it's really difficult to type on a little tiny keyboard. You could pair it with a bigger keyboard, but then it kind of defeats the purpose of the portability of it because you're carrying around a keyboard and this thing. So then you get into the realm of carrying a bigger iPad. Um, so yeah, so I have the keyboard case for this one. This theoretically could function as a decent size MacBook replacement as far as like from the size angle. But it is not this. So, when it comes to the bigger one, um, to the iPad Pro, you're sitting there with this as your screen. I mean, it's basically almost, if you look at it, this is a MacBook Pro 16-inch, and you could see that like it's not hugely different, right? So I mean, well, it is different, but still, it's kind of, I don't know, close in comparison, whatever. Anyway, um, so this with that keyboard case, basically kind of makes it a laptop. So, you know, it really depends on what you're looking for out of an iPad. I mean, I think a lot of people buy them, because of the hype and everything like that, and then they're stuck with something. They're like, well, what does this do that my phone doesn't do, or what does this do that my laptop doesn't do? And I mean, that's a legitimate question, but it's not supposed to do the same thing as either one of those do, you know? Like I said, there are use cases for each of these, depending on if you want to do some of those things. But really and truly, these products are standalone on their own because they make kind of life a little bit easier as far as, if I want to do my banking, or if I want to, like I said, do stuff in the calendar apps, things like that. This is much easier for me to see and deal with than whipping my phone out and trying to like stare at that. So that's why, I think the iPad mini is vastly underrated. I think it's a very cool device. And I'm really glad that it's out there. um, if I had to pick one of the three that I probably wouldn't get again, it would probably be, um, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's probably going to be the 11-inch, just because it sits in the direct middle of these other two, and you know the mini is big enough for me to be comfortable with as an everyday thing, and then this is big enough for me to be happy about media consumption, and also if I wanted to, try to take this as a, oh, this thing's dirty. Look at that. Ooh, woo. That's, you can tell I'm not sponsored by anything because I don't have any like, and this is why we use this screen protector, because obviously I use a cheap one. Anyway, but yeah, so um, like I said, between the three of these, I think I would go with the Mini and I would go with the Pro, and I might have, skipped the Air 11-inch just because, you know, I, I I don't feel like I get a lot of use case out of it. Every once in a while, yeah, I will grab it and use it. But also, that's an Air. This is a Pro. So do I really need a Pro? No, because I'm not doing anything that requires this kind of stuff. Not really, but I just, I was like, I'm gonna spend money, I'll get a Pro. So the Air, they do actually make an Air that's about this size. So that might be something to check out if you want a bigger one and don't want to spend the money on the Pro. You might want to check that out. But yeah, so that's my Sunday rambling for this week, right? Um, it's been a very let's just say interesting week. Um, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody's staying sane. Um, you know, we'll just have to see what happens. I will be back next week, hopefully, fingers crossed. La da da da. Da. Again, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it, each and every one of y'all. I know that these are, still in the amateur phase as far as the videos, but I'm working on getting them better. And I appreciate everybody that subscribes because it just makes the channel get a little bit bigger. It's not going to blow up overnight. I know that, but anyway, it's a fun little thing. So anyway, you have a great week, and I appreciate you. Take care.